So tonight, the webinar is really called How to Fire Your Boss ASAP, right? So what does that mean? We're talking about how to reach financial freedom in really 5 to 10 years or less. So what is financial freedom? What are the different ways to reach financial freedom? And what do I think is the best way for you to reach financial freedom, right? Because it depends on who you are, where you are. And as I told you guys, as you probably got an email as well, stick around. For those who stick around towards the end, I'm going to give you guys basically like a code to be able to download my new ebook. So it's like 20 to 25 pages. It's kind of an ebook with all my thoughts about financial freedom in it. I'll probably turn it into like a full book sometime, maybe next year. But this is basically like a really cool version because you can get through it in probably, 15, 20 minutes, and it's very impactful. So I'm going to give that away to everybody at the end of the time tonight. I'm going to give away my rental property deal calculator to everybody at the end as well. So make sure you stick around. I'm going to try to get through this, as efficiently as possible. And that way, everybody can get through all the meat. And then again, we can open up the floor for questions at the end. For those watching live, we'll have a special Q&A session at the end where I'll answer questions for you. I'm going to be checking in with you guys, shaking you, making sure that you're still alive as we go throughout this, making sure that I'm alive, making sure you're alive. So if I tell you throw something in the chat, throw something in the chat. If you guys are good, you ready for me to start, throw a good in the chat, give me a thumbs up in the chat, throw me an emoji in the chat, throw me something. So I'm going to make sure that you guys don't get lulled to sleep, right? I like to go through this quick. I get excited. We're going to make sure that you go through it in a way to where you understand it, but I want to make sure that we, pay attention. Let's turn our cell phones off, put them on do not disturb. I'm cheating because I have Instagram live on as well right now, but I can assure you that I'm not using it. So, all right, looks like we got a bunch of goods. All right, cool. So let's move on to the next part. So before we get started, I think the most important thing when we talk about financial freedom or money or success or anything about life is kind of starting to peel back the things that we already believe that we actually need to unlearn instead of learn. And so these are a lot of things that I used to believe too, right? I used to believe when I was in high school, college, even college, I didn't know about early financial freedom. I just thought, hey, you just work a job for your whole life. My mom and my dad and my stepdad, weirdly enough, now I think about it, all three of them worked at one company for like 40 years, right? And nothing wrong with that. But obviously the world is different now. And that's not necessarily like that doesn't have to be your definition of retirement, right? You don't have to work at the same company forever. You don't have to work to, most of those companies used to have pensions and things like that. They would actually take care of people once they got to that age. But now this idea that financial freedom takes 30 to 40 years to reach is just not, it's simply not true. Most people, or not most people, but many people have the ability to reach it in 5 to 10 years. It took me about 6 to 7, which we'll go more in depth on that story here in a second. But I believe that everybody can reach it much, much sooner than 30 to 40 years. And, even in that 5 to 10 range, just depending on the route that you take. So a lot of people also believe another misconception is that you need to be a multimillionaire to retire or to be financially free. That's not necessarily the truth. It's more dependent on cash flow and different things like that, right? So, and then the last one is more of just the, I tell people you need 2 things, right? You need the information to be successful and you need the inspiration to be successful. This is more the inspiration thing. I tell people like, you believing that you're going to be rich and successful is not going to make you rich and successful. But if you believe you're not going to be rich and successful, then you will 100% not be rich and successful. Why? Because if you don't think that you are, then you're not going to take the action because you don't believe there's going to be any benefit of taking that action, right? So I think it's very important from the beginning to make sure that your mindset is not these words, right? Financial freedom is for someone else besides me. There's too much work involved. I don't have enough time. It's too hard. It's too complicated. The truth is, it really comes down to learning the system of financial freedom. And I live the same way as anybody else, right? I don't think that I'm any special or any smarter or any more well off, like from my upbringing or anything than the average person, right? So really, it comes down to just learning the system, learning the information, and then just making it a part of your day-to-day life, and then being patient and letting the strategies run their course. So I want to put you in the right mindset for a second, if you'll let me. So imagine for a second, what if you could literally just make a few changes to your current day-to-day life, and as a result, end up retiring early with millions of dollars? What would it be like if you were able to make more money and invest into assets, and those assets paid off most of your bills as opposed to your 9-to-5 salary? And the last one is, imagine what your life would be like. You can close your eyes, you can sip a margarita while you think about this or whatever you want to do. But what would your life be like if you were able to quit your job and work on what you want to work on, where you want to work on it, when you want to work on it, with whom you want to work on it with, right? And that last one has become my life in the last 6 to 7 months. And I'll kind of show you, because I didn't always know what things were going to be like. But I'll tell you this, it is very possible. So this isn't even my story. This is actually just a cool story I love to tell, because Corey was somebody that came to me about a year ago on Instagram, was just messaging me a million questions about everything, and I was answering them. And I think he got my real estate course, and I didn't hear from him for a while. And then all of a sudden, he actually messaged me. He messaged me this message right here. He said, "Hey man, I'm closing on Friday." And I'm like, "Closing on what?" "Closing on like a property. You're closing, like you're doing the night shift. You're closing a store. What are you talking about?" Right? "I haven't heard from you in months." He's like, "No, I'm closing my first property. And, thanks so much for your guidance and all that stuff." And I was like, "Let me check out the property. Let me make sure." And it was actually a really great property. He learned a lot. And that's one part of it, right? Real estate potentially, or whatever you decide to invest in. But this is Corey's life. And these are little changes. And of course, he hasn't realized all these returns yet. But again, I tell you, it's about changing things now that you can change in probably 4 to 5 weeks, and living out that life. And over the course of 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you're really going to start to see those things compound. So for Corey, he was a nurse, a normal RN. He was making about $60,000 per year. He owned no real estate. He had $1,500 a month that he was paying in rent. He bought that first house. It was actually a house hack, which we'll talk a little bit more later. But essentially, he bought a house. He lived in one of the units. He rented out the other 3 units. And so effectively, he had no rent, right? Because the rent that was coming in from the other tenants paid for his rent and for the mortgage and the utilities and everything, right? So not only did he not have rent, but he also, we helped him out and said, "Hey, what if you did like travel nursing, which is where you go on contracts, you can make more money as a nurse." And so instead of making $60,000 a year, he's now making $85,000 a year, only in the same year, right? Just by doing these contracts. But his expenses also went down, because now he's not having to pay rent, right? So he's not paying rent. He's also found some other ways to save money where he wasn't before. So at this point, he was investing $5,000 after taxes, right? Prior. And just from these changes, which weren't crazy, right? He saved up enough money to buy one house, which was about $10,000 to $12,000 down. And his income went up from doing the travel nursing. So now he has $48,000 to invest. And so if you run the numbers in any sort of compound interest calculator, which if you don't know what that is, we'll go over that in a few slides, but he's now changed that to where if he invested $5,000 over the next 20 years, he would have $274,000. Not bad, right? But that's obviously not enough to retire. But Corey is 25 years old, right? And so even if he just stopped right now, didn't buy any more rental properties, et cetera, and he just invested that $48,000 into an index fund or something like that, 10% return on average per year over the next 20 years, which is the historical average, he would end up with $3 million. And that's just math, right? That's not made up. You can do that math on yourself. You do it by $0 in there, $4,000 a month, which is $48,000 per year. And you do it for 20 years at a 10% return. That math comes out to $3 million, which is well more than enough for him to retire in 20 years, even if he doesn't buy any more rental properties. And those are all just from making a few changes to a strategy, right? So these were the messages I got from him. He bought his first rental. And then a few months later, he hit me up, was like, "Hey man, I just bought a second rental." And I'm like, this guy is killing it, and I'm not old, I'm 29, but he's a kid, to me, he's like 24, 25. And I'm like, dude, I'm just so happy to see things like that. So what are you going to learn today, right? You're going to learn the 3 main ways to reach financial freedom in the quickest amount of time possible. And you're also going to figure out which route do you think is best for you, right? So we want to dive into that. So who am I? For those of you that maybe you only know me from a few Instagram posts or my bio, or you don't know me at all, right? So I like to do these webinars and make them free so that I can kind of go a little bit more in depth into my story and show you that my story isn't going to be your story, right? Everybody's story is going to be different. But what you can do is kind of pick out the framework of what I did and kind of use it to create your own story, right? So I did get my bachelor's degree in finance, but I will tell you that 98% of what I know about finance, real estate, stocks didn't come from that 4-year degree. And that's good for you, because if you don't have a finance degree, you don't need one, right? At least to be, try to build wealth and learn about personal finance and investing, all that stuff, right? So I became a financially free millionaire at the age of 27 years old. And what that means is that the money coming in from real estate and stocks is enough for me to live on in perpetuity. My net worth is over $1.5 million now. I retired from corporate America about 6 months ago. And now, I live off my stocks, my real estate. And then obviously also I've built an online business kind of centered around doing what I love, which is coaching, teaching, and helping others. So I'm 29 years old now. I'm a real estate investor with a primary home and 7 rental units, over 10 sources of income, over $750,000 invested in the stock market, which I'll tell you kind of how I got there in a second. And then also most of you guys know me obviously from being the creator of Defining Wealth, which is something that I built to kind of give back and say, hey, what were we supposed to learn in school that we didn't learn, right? And so my story, the way that it happened for me, and I want you to take out of this, a couple of things. One, I grew up in a good home, loving parent. Like I said, my parents were divorced when I was young, but both those parents loved me. And then I ended up having a stepdad that was great. My dad never remarried. But they love me, right? Which is, I think, the most important thing that you can do as a parent. But they didn't really teach me about stocks or real estate or any of that kind of stuff. They kind of just said like, hey, here's like a piggy bank, like save money, all that kind of like the normal stuff, right? But the reason why that should be a blessing for you guys is because a lot of people are like, well, the only people that become rich, or you might have already had a preconceived notion about me, and that's fine. That's cool. I mean, that's human nature, right? You might think, well, this guy must have grown up in some family and they taught him about real estate and this and that. And, I'm sure that would have made it a lot easier. But that's just not the case, right? And that's good, because if you didn't grow up in a family like that, obviously that would make it more difficult, but that doesn't mean that that's your, the beginning is your end, right? So you have the ability to change your life regardless of, what your family talked about at the dinner table. I got good grades. I worked really hard. I went to an in-state school. I graduated debt-free from college. I had scholarships. I worked jobs. I was a resident advisor in school, so I had free rent. So I did a lot of creative strategies, basically not to start out in debt, which helped me out a lot. The funny part is that another thing that people think is like, well, you must have became a lawyer or doctor or engineer and been making $200,000 out of college or whatever. My starting salary was $31,200 if we want to be exact when I came out of school. That was a sales job, which allowed me to scale my income, which is a lot of the reason why I was able to have success in investing and stuff, which we'll get into. But there was no promise of me selling anything, right? So the only thing I was promised was $31,200 a year. But I figured, hey, you know what? I kept my expenses low, and I feel like, I can really grow and scale this through sales. And so that's what I want to do. But my issue, right when I started in work, it didn't take me but, I don't know, 5-10 days, if not minutes, to kind of understand that, hey, there's nothing wrong with work. There's nothing wrong with 9 to 5. I like the people that I work with. But for me, like the thing that I just kept coming back to right when I started working was like, dude, I'm waking up at 6 a.m. I'm doing like some things around the house, showering, eating, whatever. I'm leaving by 7. I'm getting to the office at 7:30. I'm working until 12. I'm taking a 30 to 45 minute lunch that's rushed, and I'm eating out fast food, whatever. Coming back to the office, working from 1 till 6. Then I'm leaving, getting home at like 6:30, 6:45, eating dinner, watching one crappy rerun of NCIS, which I love. But I'm like, this can't be it, right? There's no way this is it. There's no way I'm doing this for the rest of my life. And most of the people that I work with, there was a lot of people that were great people and I love them. I still hang out with them to this day. But as I looked at the people that were like 40, 45, 50 years old, 60 years old, they had been in an office setting, right? Which is what I was in. So maybe your situation is different, but most of those people were like completely unhealthy, right? They were out of shape. They were unhappy. They talked about how much they hated their life. And I'm just like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this, but I'm going to get out of this, right? So that led me on a journey, and it started with me keeping my expenses relatively low. And I focused on raising my income. At first, I didn't really know about investing. I was like, you know what? I don't know what I need money for, but I know I need money, right? So I just worked very hard. I continue to grow in sales and raise my income from $30,000. The first year I made 55 by the end of it. Then I made 100, then I made 150, then 200, then 250 and beyond, up to 300 by the time I left. And so early on, right, when I was making 50,000, 100,000, I started investing all my money into the stock market, right? Because that's the first thing that I learned about. It was easy. And that's where I felt like, that's the only thing I knew. I'm like, I know I have to get this money working for me and I don't know about anything else. So let me put my money in the stock market. And then it became, hey, I kept reading and reading and reading, which is another, kind of underlying data point here is I kept reading about personal finance and books and all these different things. And I learned about real estate, right? And so I bought a primary home, and then I ended up buying a triplex, which is a 3-unit property. And I was able to do some cool stuff with that. I bought it, fixed it up, raised the value of it, went back to the bank, refinanced it, got all my money back out, went and bought another property, right? Which that's called burr investing. And I did that a couple of times. And so that basically, all those things combined, right? Raising my income well over 6 figures, keeping my expenses low, investing in the stock market, investing in a primary home and real estate and more real estate over the course of 6 or 7 years is kind of the long story short of how I got to where I am today. And then, of course, as you guys know, obviously I started during COVID. I was already a millionaire at this point. And I was like, you know what? I feel like something's missing. I have more time on my hands. COVID's going on. We're working from home. I was like, what is missing? And I felt like for me, I didn't feel like I was contributing to society. And that was important to me. And so that's when I started the account. Had no idea that it was going to do anything, right? I was just posting stuff because I was like, I think this is going to help people and I hope people like it and jump onto it, right? And now that's 2 years ago, literally almost October 6th, pretty much to the day, 2 years ago, I started that account. And now I almost get choked up talking about it. It's been crazy the last 2 years. I mean, most of it, I was working a 9 to 5 and running an Instagram, a Twitter, a TikTok, email, all these things on the backside. But now I'm at 200,000 followers across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. And now I get to do what I love. Right. So at the end, when I tried to make the decision of, do I want to quit my job? It started to become, hey, I've got enough money from real estate. I've got enough money from the stock market. What am I doing? Like, what is the point of all this? Right. And that's why in like, when I work with people, that's the first thing I do is like, hey, let's try to figure out the point of everything before we do 7 years of work. Right. But luckily I realized, hey, the point of what I want to do with my life is this. I want to lead, coach, teach, help people get to where I got so that they can chase their own passion. Right. And so for me, I was like, you know what? I could sit here and make $200,000, $300,000 a year at my job for the next 10 years, save up $2, $3, $4 million pretty easily, keep investing in stocks and real estate. But I was like, I've gotten well more than enough to live on from stocks and real estate. Plus, why don't I just kind of turn what I'm doing into a business where, I make money and I also give people way more value than they're paying me, right? That seems like that would be the better idea, right? So that was kind of my story. I hope you guys got some, good stuff out of that. So let's take a second. Let's talk about the flow of money, right? Because this is the system. This is the system to reach financial freedom. And this is the very top of it, right? And so each one of these is very important. That's why I tell people, hey, if you make a ton of money, I saw an article today. Someone's making $300,000 a year and they're living paycheck to paycheck, which blows my mind. But they're doing it, right? And so that's why income I think is the most important in the beginning. But of course, if you have income, but you don't know how to budget and control your expenses, then you're screwed. If you know how to control your expenses, but you're only making $30,000, $40,000 a year, more than likely you need to raise your income, right? And we all understand that. Now, if you've got good income, decent expenses, but you keep taking out credit card debt or you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans, right? So all these things take into account. But what we want to do is figure out how do we limit putting our money into wealth limiting factors and how to put it more into wealth building factors, right? So the wealth building factors, of course, are saving, which is more so just protection in emergency situations, saving up for short-term goals. The big one, of course, and how we become financially free is how do we take as much of this as possible and put it into this category, right? And so you'll see this on the next slide. This is kind of the top part. And then this is kind of like if I expanded this investing thing a million more times, that's what I did on this next slide here, right? So this is what financial independence looks like in the most basic chart that I can give you, right? So your income, right, after expenses and debt and all that stuff goes into investing. Investing is 3 different things, right? Investing is either some version of the stock market, some version of business or your business, or some version of real estate, or a combination of all 3, right? And so the stock market, the ways you make money in the stock market is they may pay a dividend, right? A dividend is a portion of a company's profit that they kick back to investors as an incentive for buying that stock, right? So if you own Apple stock and it's we'll say it's $100. I know that's not what it is, but it's $100. and they have a 1% dividend, that means they're giving you $1 back per year for every $100 that you have invested. Now, obviously, that's a very small amount. And the thing with dividends, they're more cherry on top in most situations, especially when you're trying to grow your money. The second way to the stock market is you're investing in the stock market and you're hoping that the value of that stock or stocks or index funds or whatever goes up in value, right? And that's appreciation. So dividends can be reinvested back into the stock market. Appreciation is the value of your account going up over time. And then, of course, you're able to live off that if you want to at some point down the road. That is typical retirement. Typical retirement is your financial planner saying, hey, how do I make this happen by the time this person's 65 years old, right? But obviously you can do that much more aggressively to retire earlier. There's also business. Business is a little bit different, of course, where you can invest in your business, make money from your business, use that revenue to live off of. And then obviously at some point you can't run your business forever. So it's either about creating equity in your business to where you can sell it, or taking the revenue that you're making from your business and using that to invest in passive sources, which are the stock market or real estate. And real estate can be active, can be passive, depending on how you do it, but one of those two things, right? And then real estate, we'll go over a little bit more in depth with how to make money in real estate, but it's pretty similar. The properties go up in value, but they also cash flow you money that you can live off at the end of the month. So let's dive into these three. These are our three options, right? Our three options when it comes to reaching financial freedom. So the first one is the stock market. So retirement is not an age. Retirement is a blank. If you know the answer, if you don't know the answer, if you want to guess, throw it in the chat while I take a drink. This webinar is being brought to you by Body Armor. No, I wish. Honestly, I want to get sponsored by Body Armor. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, I used to work for them in college. And I would go to like Costco's and try to, I was an intern and I would like try to like teach people what it is and give them free samples and try to get them to buy it. It's actually a superior product. I'm not going to get into that, but I like it. I like it better than Gatorade actually. So let's see what we got here. Let's see what kind of number, I already said the word. What kind of numbers we got, what kind of comments we got. So I'll tell you what, there's not really a wrong answer in here. There's an answer, of course, that I'm looking for, but some people said lifestyle, number, dollar amount, number, mindset, destination, number, right? So the answer I'm looking for here is number, but yeah, it is a destination, which is kind of the same thing as reaching a number. It is a mindset, right? If you don't have the right mindset, you will not get there. And lifestyle is a correct answer as well, right? Because you need to make this a part of your lifestyle in order to get there. So those are all good answers. So how do you find out what your number is? So there's a 4% rule, right? And the 4% rule is a result of the Trinity study, as you can see right there. The Trinity study, I could go into this for 30 minutes. I'm going to try to do it in 30 seconds. So hang with me. There's a little bit more to it than this, but I'll give you what the need to know, right? So we can get on to the next part. But the Trinity study basically was a group of economists, right, that got together and they basically said, if you have a portfolio of X amount, how much can you take out of that portfolio every year plus inflation and not run out of money, right? So an example, if I had $1 million and I took out $500,000, how many years would I last, right? I would last probably 2 years, maybe a little bit more if it went up in value, right? But not very long, right? So I definitely can't take out 50%. So after they ran all the numbers, and the numbers they ran were, hey, did you do this in 1930 or 1940 or 1970, right? So the years matter because the returns matter. The returns are different in each year, right? Another things that matter, is kind of like how you have your portfolio allocated, different things like that. But the rule they came out with, what you need to know for right now, is that you can once you hit your number, right, which I'll explain more in a second, then you can take out 4% of that every year and not run out of money over the course of 30 years, or at least have a very, very small amount of chance of running out over 30 years. And you might say, hey, 4%, that's only 25 years. But they also take into account that the money is going to be growing while you're taking it out at the same time, right? So how do we figure out what our number is? So our numbers are annual expenses, right? So let's take 25 in this case, and we need $50,000 per year, right? So let's say we need about $50,000 per year. That's about a little over $4,000 per month. So what kind of stock portfolio would we need, right? So for the 4% rule, you can ignore that 60,000. That's the 60,000 right here is supposed to be 50,000. So let me fix that real quick. Cool. All right. So if you need $50,000 per year, right? you would divide that by 0.04, right? Why? Because it's 4%, right? So 50,000 divided by 4% gives you $1.25 million. So that means that once you make up $1.25 million, that means you'd be able to take out the $50,000 per year plus inflation each year. And you'd be able to not run out of money over 30 years, right? So that would be your number in this case, right? Which is what we're trying to get to in the stock market. So you might sit here and you might say, hey, I think that's a really high number. Maybe that's a really low number. Maybe I don't know how to get there. So let's look real quick at a compound interest calculator. And compound interest is, well, I'll put this in first. Let's say we start off with $0 and we invest $1,000 a month. And again, I know this isn't linear. Like you don't just invest $1,000 a month for 30 years. Because you maybe start with 100 or maybe you start with 500 and then you work your way up and then maybe eventually you're investing $2,000 a month. But I just want to kind of go to show you, because if you had $1,000 a month, right, for 30 years, that'd be $30,000 times the number of months. That'd be like $420,000 a month. Maybe I did that math right. $420,000 in savings, if you saved it instead of invested, would be okay. But here's the compound interest. Compound interest is I'm getting a 10% return on average per year from investing it. So instead of $420,000, I have $1.9 million. So now we know, okay, well, when do we hit our number? When do we hit our 1.25 million? So you can see here in year 26, we only contributed $312,000, which I understand is a lot of money, but our value is $1.3 million. Why? Because you can see this curve here. This curve is compound interest. What that means is when I invest $1,000 in a month, over the course of a year, that's $12,000. The next year, I also invest $12,000 and $12,000 and $12,000, but I'm getting a 10% return on that original $12,000. And so that's grown to maybe, $13,000, right? So the next year I have $13,000 in there and I put in another 12, right? So now I'm getting a 10% return on $25,000, right? So now I'm getting a return on a return on a return on a return on a return, which is what compound interest is. And that's why it's a curve that is always going up. But as you can notice, it's exponential, right? Which means that the difference between this year and this year and this year and this year is higher, this year and this year is higher, this year and this year is higher, right? And that's, obviously predicated on it being a 10% average, but that's compound interest. And that's how you could get there in 26 years. So you might sit here and say, well, 26 years, I don't know, that's not that great. But what I would say is, yes, maybe you're right. There are ways to get there sooner, which obviously we'll dive even more into here in a second. But I want you to understand too, that the typical retirement, if you're 20 years old, you work, or you're 22 years old, you get out of college, is working until you're 67 years old, right? That's 45 years. So effectively, just from right there, just from investing $1,000 in an index fund per month, which is zero work, requires zero intelligence, zero effort, zero nothing. You can set up on automation. That right there alone is shaving what was it, 45 minus 26, 19 years off your retirement right there, right? So if you're retiring at 67, you're now retiring at, what is that? What did I say? 19 years minus 67 is 30, 38, 48, right? So that's crazy, right? Just from that alone. So the second way, right, we went over is real estate. So in the stock market, we have the 4% rule. In real estate, it's a little more complicated, but a little more simple at the same time. It's really more about the cash flow, right? The cash flow at the end of the month. So let's say you needed $50,000 per year. I'll go back and use the same numbers we had before. That means you need about $4,000 per month. That means you need about 8 properties cash flowing $500 a month. Those 8, we'll just use these numbers right here because it's already done. But 10 properties may equal $4 million, right? So 20% down payments on those would be $800,000, right? So you don't need to contribute $800,000 to get to this situation, because you're buying rental properties and the first rental property is making money plus your job. So then you're buying the second one a little bit faster. Now for the third one, your job is hopefully going up in raises in salary over time, commission, whatever. And then you're also making money from rental property 1, rental property 2. That can buy the third one faster, the fourth one faster, right? So you're creating income sources and you're also building your income source at the same time, right? And building your machine in real estate. So in this situation, people always ask me, how do I make money with real estate? So the cool thing about real estate is you actually make money in 5 different ways. So of course, I think the most, classic way is cash flow, which is just how much is there coming in rent at the beginning of the month minus how much is going out in expenses at the end of the month. The second one is appreciation, but plus leverage. So this is a cool part that way too many people miss. So I'll give you a really easy example, easy math. Let's say we have a $200,000 house, right? And real estate on average goes up 3% per year. We know that in the past couple of years, it's gone up way, way more than that, obviously. But on average, it goes up about 3% per year. Now, if you bought a $200,000 house, let's say you put 5% down, it's the house hack. That means you're living in it, blah, 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 right? So you put $10,000 down, you bought a $200,000 house. Now, what goes up by 3%? The value of the house goes up by 3%, right? The $10,000 you put in doesn't go up by 3%. The value of the house does. So what's 3% of $200,000? That's $6,000. So that house is now worth $206,000, right? So what is your return there? Your return isn't 3%. Why? Because it's $6,000 that it went up, and just in appreciation, just from one return, divided by the amount you put in, which was $10,000, that's a 60% return on the money that you invested just from appreciation alone. Why? Because you're able to use leverage, which is the bank buying the majority of the property for you. And the cool part is when the property goes up in value, the bank doesn't say, hey, I want 90% of that because I own 90% of the house. The bank is already making their money from the loan and the interest on the loan. They just want you to pay off your loan. They don't care if that $200,000 house is worth $1 million one day. They don't want any of that $800,000, none of it. They only want you to pay back your loan, right? And so over time, you can see how that can add up. The third one is equity capture, which is, I've done this a lot. The last couple of years has been harder to do, but it's starting to come back around as well as prices are starting to drop. There's a lot of great opportunities for real estate that are coming back around right now. Is buying a property that maybe needs some work and you're able to buy it for less than it's valued at because it needs that work and they want to get rid of it or whatever the case may be is, right? So if you bought a house you can buy a house for less than it's worth, right? If they're motivated to sell it. I can't go to the stock market and tell Amazon, hey, I'm going to pay $100 less per share than everybody else, right? They're going to tell me that's not how it works, right? But in real estate, that's possible. The fourth way is principal pay down. So every month the tenants give you rent, you pay down your loans. And when you pay down your loans, a portion of that goes to pay down the principal balance on the loan, right? Some of it goes to pay interest, goes to the bank, and some of it goes to pay down the actual loan. And so as that loan gets paid down, that is equity that you own in the property, right? So you're making money from cash flow, the property going up in value, buying it for less than it's worth, and also you're making money by the loan being paid down. And the fifth way is there's a ton of tax advantages that come along with owning real estate. I'm probably going to sell my primary home soon. And I've lived here for 2 out of the last 5 years. I'm probably going to make a few $100,000 on it. And I'm not going to have to pay zero taxes on it. Why? Because there's certain tax loopholes. That one's for primary real estate, but nonetheless, it's for real estate. And it's just a rule, right? The tax code is written for business owners, investors, and real estate investors, right? And so that's one cool way there, but there's a lot of more like that. So let's look at an example deal real quick. And I don't want you to get hung up on the numbers or like, hey, properties aren't valued at that where I live, or I live in California. I just want you to look at the numbers and the relation between them so that we can get the idea of kind of how a real estate deal works, right? And oddly enough, this is almost my exact first deal that I bought. I bought a triplex in, kind of a small town, kind of middle of nowhere kind of situation. I bought it for $10,000 less than what it was worth because there was a motivated seller. He wanted to get out of it, right? So right there off the bat, I made $10,000 because the day I bought it, it was worth $10,000 more than I paid for it. So I put about $34,000 down, which is 20% plus a little bit for closing. I actually probably put a little bit less than that down. The monthly rent that I got was actually a little bit more than this because there was 3 units. It was a triplex. So it was $900, $900, and $900, right? So that was $2,700 a month that was coming in. The expenses were about $1,500 per month, which means the cash flow, which is total rent minus total expenses, right? Every single expense that goes along with the rental property. At the end of that, I still had about $1,000 a month in cash flow. So after year one, I had $10,000 in a return. Appreciation was about $5,000. And as you can see, we talked about before, that's 3% of $160,000. But that's really a 14% return because I didn't put down $160,000. I put down $34,000, right? Cash flow was $12,000 per year. which is $1,000 per month. The principal pay down, which is how much of the loan was paid down from me taking the tenant's rent and paying down the loan, about $2,000 in that first year. And then I also saved about $1,100 on my taxes. So you'll see these numbers on the right. They'll become the numbers on the left, same numbers. So let's break this down one more time, right? So the total money I spent was $34,000. The total yearly return was about $30,000. Where did I get that number? I added up all those numbers on the left. And so that gives me, as you can see in the bottom right, a total return of 87%, which sounds crazy, doesn't sound real. But like I said, with real estate, you're not just making money from the property going up in value. You're making money all these different ways, plus you're using leverage. So this is very possible. And if you want to talk about a cash on cash return, as far as, hey, how much profit cash flow did I get divided by how much cash I put into the deal, which was the down payment, you can see that there's a 35% return, right? Which is crazy. And the cool thing about real estate is as time goes on, if year one is cool, then every year after that is actually going to get better and better. Why? Because your mortgage payment is going to stay the same for all 30 years, right? There are things that will go up, your property taxes, your insurance, other expenses, right? Inflation, stuff like that. We understand that. But after year 5, since our mortgage is staying the same, and our cash flow is going to go up. So now instead of $12,000 a month, we're making, or a year, we're making $15,000 a year, which is the 39% return. Plus the property's gone up in value. The tenants have paid down the loan to the tune of another $37,000, just an extra money that is your equity in that property. After year 15, you're now making $23,000 a year just from one rental property in profit. Plus you've gained another $132,000 in appreciation and the tenant paying down your loan. And then after year 31, which is a typical mortgage length, you now own a $400,000 house free and clear. You can either sell that or refinance it, take that money out, buy new properties, whatever. But I just want to give you an example of kind of how it pans out over the lifespan. In that situation, you're now making $50,000 per year just from one rental property in profit. And you've also accumulated an extra $368,000 just from the property going up in value and the tenant paying down your loan. And the cool part is, let's break this down one more time, because don't get caught up on the $34,000 or there's not properties in my area. You know, we can go over all that obviously too, as far as where these properties are, they exist. You can probably get them for maybe even cheaper as well. But in this situation, hang with me, you invested $34,000 one time, right? After that, all the expenses on the property, that's baked into the cash flow, right? So if I'm cash flowing $1,000 per month, that means I've already paid for the maintenance, property manager, utilities, everything that goes along with it, right? So I'm never having to really come out of pocket again. The property is sustaining itself and it's cash flowing if you're buying the right properties. But after that too, what you can do is get a property manager. I own 7 rental units. I have a property manager that is 99% of all of the work for me. So in this situation, imagine you've got a property manager, and now after 31 years, you own that $400,000 house paid in full. It's paying you $50,000 in cash flow per year. And that's only one house, right? Obviously, imagine over the course of time, you're not just going to buy one house, right? You buy, you know, multiple properties or Airbnbs or whatever, right? And so imagine you had 10 similar properties. That'd be $4 million in paid off real estate, paying you $500,000 a year in cash flow. So the properties, the opportunities with real estate can truly be immense if done correctly, right? So that's why I love real estate, and it's a great option for a lot of people. If you guys are still with me, I'm pumped. I'm excited. Real estate, cash flow, something in the chat. I'm gonna take a drink, make sure that I don't have a heart attack. Yeah, throw me like some thumbs up, some emojis, whatever you got, a fire, a mind explosion, something. I want to make sure that no heart attacks. Yeah, all right, yeah. Fingers crossed. I probably shouldn't joke about that. Sorry about that. Cool. All right. I just want to make sure, because I know I go through this fast because I get excited because I love it so much, but also I just want to 2 nurses here. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Brittany. I think you're a little far away, but I appreciate you looking out for me. Dude, it's funny. I worked with nurses. That's what I did in sales, is I placed nurses on travel contracts. It's part of what I did. And I worked with facilities to kind of open up those contracts and stuff like that. So I've been around nurses forever. And the first guy was a nurse too, that I was giving you guys a story about earlier. So nurses just keep coming up. Travel nurse. Yeah, cool. That's dope. So the third way, did I skip a slide? Let me make sure I didn't skip a slide. So now Okay. Yeah. So the third way, obviously, is an online business, right? So this is a little bit different than the typical idea of financial freedom, where people say, "Well, you're still working, you run a business." Well, what do you want, right? Do you want to quit your job? Do you want to quit your 9 to 5 and work on something you're passionate about? Do you want to have time freedom, work freedom, location freedom? Then maybe being an entrepreneur is a route that would get you there faster, right? Obviously, there's more work involved. It's probably more risky in that regard, but you can start up a business for next to nothing, and do that if you have something like that. Of course, it's not for everybody, but I like to give people the option because with stocks, it's about building up that number. With real estate, it's about buying properties and getting that cash flow number. With online business, it's really about, hey, if your expenses are $4,000 a month, can you get to $5,000-$6,000 in revenue per month, right? And to where your expenses are covered. Because if your main goal is just to quit your job, that can be a good option if entrepreneurship works for you. So an example that I give is I have a friend, Daniel. He works with brands on TikTok. He has a huge account on TikTok, but he makes 3-4 grand from just posting one video, which is crazy to me. He's got like 1 million followers on TikTok. So of course he's the creme de la creme right at the top. But somebody like that, where he just started making funny finance videos. He doesn't really teach or coach or anything, but he did that, found a way to monetize through brands and advertising, stuff like that. My friend Kat, I didn't realize how many people really love Excel and use Excel. She has 1 million followers online, and she just teaches people about Excel, right? And she does really well. She quit her job. Stephanie has an account where she reviews cities and hotels, kind of like travel foodie blogger stuff. And she gets paid to go travel and gets paid on top of that by these places to promote. And then I have a friend, Haley, where I think this is a really cool idea. And I'll tell you what she does, but there's actually like a cooler thing within it. And the cooler thing within it is when you work a job, a lot of times the people ask, hey, what kind of business should I start? A lot of times is whatever business you're currently doing, where there's something that is missing from your industry, right? Whether it's a tool or, talking about nurses. I used to go to a conference and there was a lady who was a nurse, and she created I don't remember the exact issue with the scrubs, but they didn't fit right or they didn't look good or whatever. And she wanted, scrubs that look good and fit well and whatever. And she created those. And now she's not a nurse anymore because she wanted to be an entrepreneur. And now she runs the scrub brand or whatever. Right. So that's kind of like looking around and going, what are the problems around me, especially within my industry or with my space, or just problems that I run into at my house. Right. And what can I do about that if that's something that you're passionate about? But Haley, she was a realtor. She hated being a realtor. She was not good at it. She said that, not me. And what she did, though, very well, was she created social media templates for realtors as far as posting new listings and for sale and all that kind of stuff, right? And so what she did is she started an online subscription service that realtors that are not good at social media could pay her, I don't know, $40, $50 a month, and they would have access to all her templates and ideas and strategies and all that kind of stuff. And now she makes way more, and she's not a realtor anymore. So a lot of cool ideas like that. People usually ask me hey, when should I quit if I'm going to do it? That's a personal question. I would want to see that I'm making 1.5 to 2 times, if you don't have stocks and real estate, 1.5 to 2 times my monthly expenses for probably 3 to 6 months in a row, just to know that it's consistent. You want to have some sort of savings in cash in case something happens. And is it future proof, right? Are you going to be able to continue to do this? And are you going to be able to continue to scale? So those are some questions, but that's a good option for people who maybe want to go into business. So now, the final question really is, which one fits you best, right? And so you have to forgive my, stick figure, macaroni sculpture, Canva design skills, but this chart gets the point across that I want to get across. So obviously with stocks, right? And you can do a combination of these, but with stocks, it's probably going to be 10 to 25 years, which is still very early, right? That's very, very early especially when we're talking about retirement is 35 to 45 years. There's little to no effort involved or time involved. It's very easy to do. But obviously, if you're going to want to try to invest, to get there in 25 years, it's going to be $1,000 a month on average, something like that, which you can work up to. If you want to get there in 5, 10 years, obviously it's going to be much more aggressive than that. But the cool thing about stocks is the likelihood of you achieving it is, as close to 100% as it can be, because it's literally just putting your money in index funds and letting them sit there and you just focusing on making more money and investing more, right? So there's not too much risk over the long haul. Real estate, you can get there a lot sooner, 5 to 15 years, maybe even sooner than that. Obviously, it kind of depends on the down payment. Maybe there's a little bit more time required on the front end, maybe a little bit more work required as well, finding properties, learning about it, etc. But that's also why you're able to get there a lot sooner. Business, is kind of a mix of those. Obviously, you can get there sooner, right? It just depends on how fast you can grow your business. And the time required, though, for the business obviously is going to be more than real estate and stocks, and there would be more work involved, so that you would have more risk technically and a lower likelihood of achieving it. Doesn't mean that that's the wrong way to do it, but it's all about trying to figure out how soon do you want to get there? How much time are you willing to invest? What kind of financial investment are you either willing to do now or can you work up to? And how do you feel about your quality of work ethic and your likelihood of achieving whichever it is, right? And what you might do is, as you guys know, my thing was, hey, I'm going to invest in stocks, right? And first I was like, I'm going to focus on my income. Then I'm going to focus on stocks because I didn't know about anything else. I'm like, you know what? I think I can get there quicker with real estate. I did get there quicker with stocks and real estate combined. And then I started a business, kind of top it off at the end, right? So those are all the things that we're kind of looking at. And so if you want a cool calculator, basically just type in Grant Sabatier FIRE calculator. You can Google this. And I won't go through all this, but imagine like we were doing earlier, right? We say it's $50,000. That's the number we came up with earlier. So this thing calculates it for you. But let's say you have, and this is just talking about stock portfolio. So let's say, for instance, that you've got $2,000 a month coming in cash flow. Now you need a lot less money. Why? Because you have money coming in and you don't need as much from your stock portfolio, right? And so it also allows you, like, hey, what if I need $100,000 in 20 years for my kids' retirement, or not kids' retirement, kids' college, or whatever the case may be, like that. So that's a cool tool for you guys as well. And that way you can kind of use real estate and business income plus, what your expenses are. And then this will kind of give you, like, hey, this would be like the stock portfolio that you might need, right? In order to do that, right? So that's a good way to calculate your number. So we've kind of gone through, of course, this is financial independence, right? Putting your income as much as possible into stocks and or business and or real estate until you are, the assets through income and growth investments, as you can see there at the bottom, is enough to sustain your lifestyle. And then at a certain point, you're able to take that income out, which you can see the red X there, and the system still runs itself even without that main 9 to 5. So I want to ask you guys, have you gotten value out of this? Are you with me? Is this valuable? Have you guys learned a lot? Do you understand the 3 different ways? Do you understand real estate? Do you understand the stock market? Do you understand business? Do you understand kind of how we make these decisions and why this is important and all this stuff? And has this been valuable to you guys? Okay, I just want to read the chat, make sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, and so I saw someone just said, like, hey, two people said, hey, I'm halfway to my FIRE number. That's dope. Someone said, where'd it go? I don't know. So someone said it seems more possible now than ever before. And so that was going to be my next question is, do you now see how retiring at 65 now seems pretty insane, right? And how we thought, this golden egg, right, that society's told us about forever is kind of cracked, right? And how creating financial freedom in only 5 to 10 years is very possible by employing a few strategies. You could be saving more, investing more, and building serious wealth. And then, of course, when you take action and stay consistent, it's actually possible for people with no previous experience or financial results or financial knowledge to get big results fast. So I know someone in here said, I'm very interested in learning more. And, so I know there's a lot of things probably that you guys are still wondering about. And, of course, the whole system, right, as a whole, as far as how do I build a spending plan? How do I figure out my net worth and my budget and my savings rate? How do I raise my savings rate? Should I pay off my debt or should I invest? Should I save or should I invest? How do I get better jobs? How do I get raises? How do I fix my resume? How do I fix my LinkedIn and network? How do I actually buy rental properties? How do I build a team to buy out of state? How do I run the numbers on rental properties? What do I actually invest in the stock market? Like, what exact index funds or whatever do I actually invest in? Do I put it in a Roth IRA? Do I put it in a brokerage account? Where exactly do I put that money? And then I'm sure, you're obviously wondering about a ton of different things as far as debt, credit, savings, how to maximize your benefits. Should you live in a primary home or rent? How do you pay less in taxes? Airbnb, all that kind of stuff as well, right? And so at this point, obviously, there's two main ways that you can figure all those things out. One, the first way is the way that I tried to do this. Is I tried to Google and YouTube everything because I was like, you know what, everything's online, everything's for free, and it is. The issue with that is that, you know, I paid for all these books, right? $20 a book, 100 books, do the math, it's thousands of dollars. Plus, it just took me a lot longer. I learned from a lot of different people. That means I got mixed messages. Things were not chronological. Things were not organized. And the biggest thing is I never really had a mentor to where when I got stuck or I usually just had to make the mistake and eat the cost of whatever that was and continue moving forward and figuring out. And so the other part of that, and really people ask me like, hey, if you had to start over and do it all over again, what do you wish you had? And I'm like, I can tell you exactly what I wish I had. I wish from the beginning I had a mentor that had already got to where I want to go that I could actually talk to, right? Because I read books from Robert Kiyosaki and all these different people. I could never message them. I could never call them. I could never email them, right? I could never learn from them, right? I could just read the book. And then once I have trouble putting it in action, I kind of just get stuck, right? And I'd rather have a curriculum that's like all those books combined, right, into one organizational, chronological format. I wish I was around a lot of people that were thinking like this now. Like you guys follow me on Instagram, so you probably know some people that, you know, are talking about this kind of stuff. Back then, I did not. I also wish I just had access to network with more people that are doing different things, right? Exposing myself to Airbnb investors, CPAs, real estate investors. And really, I just wish I had like, hey, all that stuff that took me 7-8 years. Yeah, that's not bad. But I wish there was some way I was able to expedite it. So for some of you guys, I know you said a lot of you guys are interested in learning more, or you're interested in maybe taking that short path. I'm going to go over, let me know in the chat if it's all right if I take like 5 minutes just to go over, you know, kind of what an option might be for you guys if you guys are interested. And then I'll go into the Q&A and all that stuff after. So just throw me a chat. Something in the chat and I'll go through that real quick and then we'll get on to the Q&A. Make sure you guys get the ebook, all that kind of stuff as well. I told you guys that, you know, you guys know obviously that I have a masterclass, and the reason why I built that masterclass is to fix all those things, right? Is to fix the time that I spent, the time I wasted learning the hard way, to give you the highest possible likelihood of achieving, right? And so I created it and people always ask me, hey, what is in this? And I'm like, people say, well, you know, I just need to know how to raise my income, or I just need to know how to invest in real estate, or I just need to know how to invest in the stock market. And I'm like, I'll teach you that, but let's build a system, right? That's how we completely change our likelihood of achieving financial freedom, because you need a system, right? So we go over how to figure out what you want, right? We go over figure out your budget, your spending plan, paying off debt, how to grow your income, how to get raises, how to build side hustles. And we also go over how, we do your resume for you. We get you on LinkedIn, redo your LinkedIn for you if you need it, teach you how to network, interview, all that kind of stuff as well. And then we go into investing. Right now that we've built cash flow, we go over, hey, this is exactly how to buy real estate, how to run the numbers, how to build a team, how to get it set up, how to buy Airbnbs if you want to do that. How to invest in the stock market, what accounts you need to invest in, what index funds you need to invest in to maximize your stock returns over the long term while minimizing the risk involved. And then if you want to build a side hustle or a company and use social media to grow and scale that, we also have a module on that. So it's 10 modules like this, and then we put it together at the end of the course. And so, like I said, I built this course really to give you the answer to this question, right? And that is your dream outcome, which is reaching financial freedom, right? And then really maximizing your perceived likelihood of achievement, right? What is the likelihood of you actually achieving it? Because if you read a book like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's going to be good, but it's not going to allow you to achieve financial freedom, right? And so for me, I'm like, how can I give the maximize the likelihood of someone achieving it? So the masterclass is actually 5 weeks. It's live. All 10 of these modules are done 1 hour at a time, so they're digestible. But if you can't make the live time or you don't want to, you can actually watch the recording. So we record it live, right? You can join live just like this if you want. That way you can chat, you can ask questions. I'll answer questions at the end. Or I record it immediately. You can watch it the next day or whenever it's most convenient. Also, you get lifetime access. So obviously this is so much stuff, and this is really going to be the plan for you for financial freedom for the rest of your life. So people that have joined us in the past, they still to this day go back over these plans and watch these videos, and they have lifetime access to it. So they go, hey, you know what? I wasn't going to invest in real estate in the beginning, but now I am. down the road, hey, I still have this class. I don't have to pay anymore to access it again. And the really cool part is people always ask, hey, I want one-on-one. I want one-on-one time, right? One-on-one time does not exist in the real world with people that have written books, or like I said before, you can't ask Robert Kiyosaki to talk with you. He doesn't have time. I unfortunately don't even do one-on-ones anymore. But for the people in the masterclass, what I do is 2 to 4 hours a week. I get on a live like this with no curriculum, and I let people, whoever wants to join can join. They'll come on. They can either speak their question in person like this straight to me about their life, what they have going on, and what I think about their plan and what we can do to make it better. Or you can throw it in the chat, whatever's most convenient. But you get 10 hours of that, right, over the course of the course. And now, for whatever reason, the office hours are great, but let's say a question comes up in the meantime, right? We also have a Facebook group to where you're going to get around other like-minded folks that are also doing what you want to do. Plus, you're able to ask me questions in that Facebook group every single day for 5 weeks. I'm in there. And the big thing is I'm helping you implement the plan. I'm not just teaching you. I'm teaching you. I'm answering your questions live. I'm helping you implement the plan. And then I'm also holding you accountable, right? Every single day I'm posting in there an email. I'm posting in the Facebook group. I'm saying, hey, this is what we have going on today. Here's the Zoom. I know there's a lot going on, but let's get through it, right? So by the end of the month, you have everything you need to know, right, to become financially free. And so the last thing also is there's guest speakers, right? So I bring on my wife for one of them. She's an HR specialist. For anybody that wants their resume redone or looked at, she looks at their resume. She's looked at people's resume and helped them redo it. And they've literally gotten $10,000 raises, which I'll show you on the next slide, an example of that. But we go over that. You would normally have to pay someone $200 or $300 probably to redo your resume and that kind of stuff. But we do that for free, included LinkedIn, whatever it's going to take to get you to make more money, invest better, and reach financial freedom as soon as possible. We also bring on an Airbnb investor for 2 hours. He's one of my close personal friends. He profits over $200,000 a year from Airbnb. So you get a listen from him, learn how to buy Airbnbs. You can ask him whatever question you want. During that, we also bring on CPAs, tell you how to save money on your taxes as well, all on top of these courses. So as you can see, it doesn't really matter whether you can show up live or not, because like I said, most people actually just watch the recordings. But if you do want to show up live, that is kind of a cherry on top. So, we go over in the first week, it's about figuring out, hey, where are we? What do we want? We start off slow, get our feet, wet, and really build that foundation. A lot of office hours, so you can kind of catch me up to speed with, hey, where are you right now? What's going on in your life? What do you want out of this? And I talk to every single person in all these courses. I literally know people. I know their families now, still to this day that I talk to people. We go over building a spending plan, raising your income, how to land the highest paying jobs, understanding how to raise your credit score, debt, what do you need to save, another office hours. We do 2 full nights, which is about 3 to 4 hours of investing in the stock market. And then we also do office hours. A CPA comes on, and then we bring on the Airbnb investor. I do a night on real estate, and then also how to build a business, right? So people always ask me like, hey, it's hard for me to put a value on it, but if I had to, of course, normally people pay me, it's $200 an hour when I was doing the one-on-ones, which I'm not doing anymore. So you guys are getting me for like 40 hours, right? And I really pour my heart and soul into the masterclass and try to answer any and all questions that I can. And so people always ask me, okay, yeah, so it's $5,000. How do you come up with that number? And so I like to just kind of let people speak for itself. Jalen is somebody, I don't know if Jalen is still in this chat tonight, but Jalen's one of the past students from the past masterclass. She was in here earlier. This is her testimonial in the bottom left. She's saying, hey, in the chat, Jalen, tell them what's up. In the bottom left, this is her. And it's probably my favorite testimonial that I've got. Why? Because Jalen is super smart, just super well put together. She has a bachelor's in business and she has a master's degree in finance, right? And she still said at the bottom there, the finance degree, master's degrees go for $30,000 to $70,000, right? She said, what I learned in here was actually more beneficial and actionable than her master's degree in finance that she paid, 30, 40, 50,000, whatever it is, right? We won't ask what she paid for it, but she said that this was more beneficial. And as you can see, Fuad was in the class with Jalen. He got a raise of $40,000 from just the income section. And now he also is investing, which he wasn't previously. Crystal got a $15,000 raise. Her husband got a $40,000 raise. Her husband actually got fired in week number 2 of the masterclass. And by week number 4, he had an offer for $80,000 when he got fired from a $40,000 a year job. which is another one of my favorite stories. Michael bought a rental property. Valeria has already saved and invested $1,000. And so when people ask me like, hey, is it really worth $5,000? I would just kind of show these people and say like, hey, what did these people get out of it? Right? They got $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 out of it. So you're probably saying, okay, I get it, right? I see the value. So what is the price, right? Is the price $5,000? The price normally is only $397. But I told you guys, for you guys coming in, investing your time and investing in your future, for tonight only, I'm giving you guys $100 off. This is the lowest the price is ever going to be. I don't have any future master classes for the future that are already set up. But tonight I'm giving you guys $100 off. And I'm giving you guys one more special bonus, which I don't normally do, but I'm going to be giving everybody who joins tonight my 6-hour recorded real estate course for completely free. So that is normally $200. So for everybody that joins the masterclass tonight, you will not only get $100 off, but you will also be getting my full 6-hour real estate course for completely free. I also offer payment plans. So if you want to break it up over 2 months or 4 months, you can break it up. $74. Of course, I spent more than that on a dinner out. So of course the dinner was good food. I'll never get that back. This is paying $74 to learn how to make $5,000 raises and learn how to turn that $5,000 into tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And the biggest thing that I tell people is I give you a 100% money back guarantee. So for whatever reason you take the course and you don't feel like you got at least 10 times more than the price you paid, then I'll send your money back immediately, right? And the reason why I do that is because I don't want someone to go in the class, right? And for whatever reason, they feel like they didn't get money out of it or didn't get value out of it, right? And so for me, I tell people all the time, I don't want your money. I want your success story, right? And if I don't feel like you're going to go out and create $2,970 worth of value, then I don't want you to join the course, right? So I want to work with actionable people that are going to take action, that are serious about changing their life. But I do offer that money back guarantee. But I will tell you, 350 people have taken the masterclass in the last couple of months, and 0 people have asked for their money back. So, obviously that goes to show you, how valuable it really is. So, at this point, we're about to jump into QA, but at this point you have 2 options, right? You can decide to wait, right? And you can say, hey, maybe next year, or maybe, hey, when's the next one? Or, I don't necessarily have like the money right now, or, things will be busy for me in October. I'm waiting for the perfect time. And what are you going to save in that situation? Of course, you'll save $297, but in this case, you'll also end up sacrificing hundreds of hours trying to figure it out on your own, like I did, thousands of dollars trying to buy books and making mistakes and figuring it out. And you're going to the biggest thing you're going to sacrifice is reaching financial freedom years later, or potentially even decades later, right? And the second option is that you invest in yourself and you start moving towards that dream outcome that we talked about today. And so imagine this for a second. By the end of this month, right, because this is only 4 weeks, the end of this month, 100% of everything that you need to know in order to go out and start taking action immediately on your financial freedom track. And in 2 weeks from now, you're able to send me one of those 5-star testimonials saying, hey, I got a $5,000 raise. Hey, I found $200 a month in my budget that I didn't know was there. Now it's an extra $2,500 a month. That's going to compound to an extra $20,000 over the next 10 years, just from that little change alone, right? So that's the opportunity that you're sacrificing by not doing it. And guess what? If for whatever reason, like I said before, if you feel like, hey, I didn't get as much value as I thought, then I'm just going to give you 100% of your money back at any time throughout the course. So if you guys are ready to take control of your financial life, you guys are ready to take, jump in tonight and get the real estate course for free and join the masterclass at the lowest price it's ever going to be, somebody throw freedom in the chat. Throw freedom in the chat if you're interested. And yeah, I will give you access to these slides. And so the calendar and what I want to talk about. So we got a couple freedoms that you guys are already posting in there. Good. I want you guys to join, take advantage of it. I did post the link in here, and I'll post it again. If you guys are joining, throw freedom in there, make sure everyone sees it. And I want to make up a point about the schedule, right? Because most people, what they say is, hey, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it to all the live classes, right? And that's okay, because this is the way that it's set up. And in the future, I'm probably not going to do live classes, right? So you should look at it as a cherry on top situation, because as I get more and more people that are in it, it's just not going to be possible to do live classes. So right now, this is actually the best because you can join the ones that you want to join for live. And then after that, you can watch the recording regardless, right? So like I said, actually 70% of people watch the recordings, and the people that watch the recordings, some people don't show up to any lives, right? And those are some of the people that, have some of those bigger raises in there, right? Why? Because they're still getting what they need out of it just from watching the recording. But if you want to join the live, right, you can join you could watch the recordings and just join in office hours once a week. And that way you're able to kind of keep up with it on your own time, watch in the morning, afternoon, night. We have people in the United Kingdom. We have people in Mexico. We have people in Asia. We have people really all over the world that take it. A ton of people in Canada. And so people are awake at different times, right? So obviously there's no one time that I can do it where everybody can fit it in, but I do it at 8 p.m. That way people, Pacific to Eastern time have the best chance of doing it. But you could watch those recordings. You could go to the office hours. And again, if for whatever reason you have questions, you get the opportunity to email me. I'm giving you my personal email address for the entire time, and I answer your emails, right? So, if for whatever reason you're like, hey, I wasn't able to make it to office hours, what do you think about this? You can ask Jalen. I met with Jalen personally, right? Because she had like a really cool story, and the class, she didn't get to make it to an office hours, and I made a special exception for her, and she can attest to that. But I'm really in there. Again, the whole point of this is how can I maximize me and my knowledge and my experience to make sure every single person in this class has the highest possible likelihood of achieving it, right? Giving literally the shirt off my back if I need to make more office hours. In the past, someone's like, hey, can you do one on the weekend? I'm just going to add it, right? We can make it into whatever we want, but I want to make sure that you guys, the reason why you don't join isn't because of just schedule, right? Because the schedule is really just a framework, but all those modules are important, and they're delivered in a very succinct and special way, chronologically, to bring you through the entire financial freedom process. And then I also sprinkle in the office hours. And then I also do one guest speaker a week, where again, the first one's my wife. A lot of people say they like her more than me. They say that her presentation is very valuable. She's worked in HR for 7-8 years. And she's a wizard when it comes to resumes. A lot of those raises that you see, I do the Tuesday night and she does the Wednesday night. A lot of those raises are just from those two classes, right? People are getting $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 raises consistently in every single masterclass. People are the ones that go out and put it into action and do the things we say are immediately making $20,000 on a $297 course. Like if I could give someone $297 and they give me $20,000 back, I would give them all the money in the world, right? So, and if they had a money back guarantee to prove it, right? It's either you go in and you feel like you got 10 times as much value, or I give you your money back, right? Which you're probably, there's no other investment like that really in the world that I've ever seen. Most people say, hey, it's $297. And if you don't like it, don't care, no refunds. I'm like, if you go in there and you don't like it, literally email me and your money will be back in your account before you even can snap your fingers. Why? Because I'm so confident. Like I said, 350 people have joined, and none have asked for their money back, right? So then, like I said, I won't jump into this too much anymore, but we have the special guests for Airbnb, CPA for taxes, how to build a business online, how to figure out what business you should build, how to use social media to build revenue, how to invest in real estate. Plus you get, again, like I said, the full 6-hour real estate course. So this right here is $200 alone, but you guys are going to get it free for those people that join tonight. You can use that link. Make sure you sign up tonight. And I'm going to start jumping into the questions. And so, like I said, I know a lot of people already threw freedom in there. So I'm excited to see all you guys, Colby, Ashley, Alex, Shamara, Anu, Brittany, Kara, Greg, Nada, Niall, just going back through some of the questions. All right, cool. So I'm glad to see you guys. If you guys, for the free gifts, I want to make sure that you guys on Instagram, you can do this later. DM me the word ebook, and it will automatically send you a link to where you can tell me where to send it. Obviously, I can't send it to like 50 people at one time, or my head would explode. Really, my fingers would explode. I'd probably get carpal tunnel first, and then I'd have another one of those heart attacks that we were talking about earlier. So make sure that you DM me the word ebook on Instagram, and then you'll get like an automated message that will come back. One of them will be automated at least. And then DM me the word calculator for my rental property deal calculator. You'll also get that for free when you join the masterclass. as well. That's part of the real estate course. So we will jump into the Q&A. So I'm going to answer questions for